Hey, friends, welcome back to the Big Talk Podcast. I'm your host, Tricia Brouk, and this is episode 689. Today's guest, Stacy Idema, rooted in feminine and emotional intelligence and shaped by personal experiences. Stacy empowers women to embrace radical responsibility, lead authentically, and redefine wealth beyond money. She combined her family business background with corporate expertise to create Equati, a family office technology that aligns values, investments, and data for smarter decisions. Let's do this. Stacy, I am so excited to welcome you as a featured guest today on the Big Talk podcast. How are you?
I'm doing well, and thank you for having me, Tricia.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to get into this with you. Our listeners are going to have so much to think about when it comes to feminine and emotional intelligence and what wealth means and the way that you work with people in serving them and empowering them. But before
Yeah.
we get into all of that, I would love for you to take us back as far back as you want to go
Sure.
and connect the dots to what has led you to be with us here today.
Mm. It's a great story, although I didn't always think that it was.
Hmm.
So imagine a little girl in a room almost always full of adults. My parents were very young when they had me. And so my entire life was filled with, especially at that very early age, adults and business. So I was born into generational business. And through my entire childhood, that's what our life revolved around. So I was a highly intuitive little girl. And as children do, they speak unfiltered. But I also had this knowing about very specific things that often my parents didn't want for me to express because of how it could be perceived based off of their business relationships in the town that we grew up in. So my voice was pretty quieted, very silenced. And yet, in that, what I didn't know is how in tune I became with people and behaviors and patterns. So I started to see pattern recognition in people and how they would act one way and how they would act in a different scenario and they would act a different way. So for me, in that very early age, and seeing what I saw in family business, I escaped to corporate thinking I would find it different. And in essence, it was a different house, same emotions, is what I like to say. You had the same types of odd behaviors, things that I couldn't quite put my finger on, but I just know that something didn't resonate. And I couldn't always quite put it together. And because I didn't know necessarily how to speak out and advocate for myself in a healthy way, but I would get really upset and really hurt. It took me years to figure out how to do it eloquently. And it was actually emotional intelligence and training in emotional intelligence that brought me to that. It was like a big aha moment, more in witnessing people and seeing the human in people and understanding that nor probably was it really ever about me. It was about their response to me and my own presence and just the spaces that I held and the things that I could do without doing anything. And so, yeah, that led me to, from there, the story explodes. But my childhood was very wrapped around business, witnessing and watching people not speaking up. And it impacted me in a number of ways through other traumas, if you will. And yeah, it led me to really the focus of feminine intelligence, emotional intelligence, and wealth.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Stacy, can you share what you mean specifically about odd behaviors inside of
Yeah.
family business?
Yeah. So growing up in the day and age where we had landlines and people could reach you at home at any time of the day or night.
Yeah.
my dad was always home for dinner. That's one thing that was a non-negotiable for him, even though he was working all the time. And he would come home, and for that hour of presence that he would have with us, while it may have been quiet at the dinner table, one thing that almost always happened was the phone would ring and somebody would want to know where he was and when they were going to be at his house to do the work that they had hired him to do. And how they would treat him in that moment was really disheartening, right? Because here I am, a little girl, the only hour I get probably during a waking period of time that I get to spend with my dad, and somebody is badgering him to know what's going to happen when it's going to happen. And my mom worked behind the scenes, and so we witnessed everything. But then we would go out in public and they would treat him like he was their best friend. And so those odd behaviors for me were like, how could one person do that one way? And then the other way, they're treating him like his best friend. And I couldn't articulate that.
That must have been so confusing as a
Mhm.
as a young person, but also as his daughter.
Yeah, 100%. And I couldn't understand because I was so trusting of everybody. I couldn't understand why they trusted almost nobody.
Your parents?
Mhm.
And that's because of the way people were behaving with them because they owned the
Yeah,
business.
yeah, yeah,
And also as a child to not see boundaries being put into place
yeah,
in service of healthy relationships, that must have been very confusing.
yeah. And my mom was better at at the boundaries piece and creating those boundaries. My dad, not so much. And I think what I've come to uncover is a couple things. One, the business, he was third generation. And while growing up in a small lake farm community town, everybody knows your name and everybody knows what you do while you're doing it. It spreads fast. And there wasn't social media. And as he even said a couple of weeks ago, I never had to tell anybody what I did. I just got phone calls saying, I need done what you do. So for him, it was about this reputation, and his perception of reputation was being kind to people. That doesn't mean that he didn't, when necessary, defend himself or put himself in a position to say no. But my mom was far more the rigid, structured, this is not okay. And yeah, it was confusing to see that and to bounce back and forth and figure out what way was the best way. And at that time, the language I used was what way was the right way and what way was the wrong way. So it became I'm wrong and they're right.
Mm.
And then the internalization of that. Yeah.
Stacey, at what point did you start using your voice, or when you began to use your voice, you were actually being heard?
Mm. It's actually been pretty recent. Um, I take that back. I started acknowledging it more recently. I started getting heard decades ago, and I just didn't notice it. I
Mm.
dismissed it. I found a way to run from it. I didn't know how to articulate it. Um, the mirror, like we were talking before we got on the call, right? I didn't know how to articulate that goodness that people saw in me and the presence and my voice and them hearing me. So I would say in the last 5 years is when I started accepting my voice, but it's been decades in the making.
How does it feel to fully embody
Mm.
accepting your voice and allowing people to see your amazingness and
Yeah.
to hear your amazingness?
It still tugs at my heartstrings. Yeah. It feels good. Um, a bit surreal. And not, let me rephrase that. And knowing that you are not part of the noise because my voice is different. And so the acceptance that I'm not here to fit in with the noise, and it's a steadfastness, I think, is the word that I'm trying to think of. Because you need to be consistent, you need to be persistent, and you need to believe in yourself. Yeah.
This is an audio recording, and I am recording on Zoom so I can see Stacy, and you're not able to do that. However, I'm sure, listeners, that you can hear the gravitas in her voice and the steadfastness and the groundedness with which you are on camera with me right now is so magnetic and so powerful. And so I'm just grateful that you have decided to use your voice and to share it and your expertise with the world so that you can empower women to embrace, and this is part of your bio,
Yeah.
radical responsibility and lead authentically, redefining wealth beyond money.
Yeah.
So let's get into that a little bit, what you do, how you support people, and when this took off for you.
It took off for me after I left corporate. So that running from family business, and I ran to corporate and spent 27 years there. And then after we broke up, I went back to entrepreneurship, which is a place I swore I would never be. And through
Why
that,
is that? Why is that, Stacy?
oh, my first marriage was to a generational business owner. And now coming out of that years ago, but watching my boys in it, they've both been in and out of generational business. And that really is the kind of the conduit. I have this piece that I do with women in wealth and their own emotional intelligence, but then I have a technology really about bridging the generations. I've been on all sides of it. I've been the daughter of, the wife of, and the mother of. And it's can be brutally painful. And yet it's where I belong. So I just I don't think I wanted to accept it. And no, I didn't want to accept it. How dare I? Because I couldn't wait to get out of this small town where everybody knew who I was and what I did. So there's that correlation for me of that. Um, but I landed back in this place of entrepreneurship. And uniquely, most of my corporate experience was actually working with men, chief execs, PhDs, MDs. I was in financial services and healthcare, so brilliant people. And that's who I resonated with the most. So I really struggled to have really healthy female relationships. So when I left, my focus was women and really at that executive coaching level. But I missed the men. I really did. And both of my children, both of my adult children are men. And there was something inside of me that clicked. And after I went through my second divorce, and also recognizing that where I didn't acknowledge my voice and hurting individuals, right? So there's this piece of this radical responsibility of, yes, I've been married twice, and what is my role in it? How and where did I not speak up? Where did I hurt people? Because if I was lying to myself, I was lying to them. And through that journey, it led me to London, where I started one business, made a huge pivot, started the other, and from there became very grounded, not only with doing some additional personal development work around feminine intelligence, but then what's that storyline and that money storyline for women? Because as the major benefactor of the great wealth transfer, we keep talking about and telling these stories and these narratives that repeat the things that we're trying to change. And so, as I say to women, okay, tomorrow you walk into a room and you don't even have to pitch. And the five men behind the table say, we're in $1 million, we're investing in your business. Now what? What's your story? And then what do you do? Because if you've never had that kind of money to now go build a business with, how are you going to expand? What's the story that you're going to tell people? What's the narrative behind what you're going to do with it? Because how we react is going to be that mirror. So my journey through this to be to women and to serve women, and then missing the men and realizing that I had to change my voice and my relationships and my story because I'm the mother of two men and I can't leave them behind. I would be doing a disservice. And the stories that I taught them, I get to rewrite right now because I understand my impact. And yeah, everything exploded from there. I think everything
That's
exploded.
that's beautiful. When you talk about money storyline and voice,
Yeah.
I don't think most people connect that. I mean, we all know our words have impact,
Yeah.
and what we say about ourselves and what we say about others
Yeah.
and what we say about money also has a huge ripple effect. Can you speak to that a little bit, Stacy?
Yeah. So the storyline that I used to tell my kids, or that I actually emulated and I modeled, was that I begged for money from their father as they were children. And I told them this a whole plethora of stories that either that's just the way that it had to be, that I didn't have a responsibility, it was only his responsibility, that when I got older, that when I did X, Y, Z, A, B, D, F, like all the things, that then the money would come, that then I would be worthy, that then we could go do the things, that then there was always the if then.
Mm.
Um, and I'm witnessing how they show up and what they're doing now. Um, that's that same storyline, and it's showing up in really unique ways that, from a voice standpoint, it's not my place to tell them what to do now as adult men. So I have to bite my tongue in a time when I don't want to, and also tell them where I would choose differently
Yeah.
and how I am choosing differently.
Yeah. And those seeds were planted before you had this awareness, though.
100%.
So now that you have this awareness in service of the women that you're working with and the men,
Yeah.
how are you helping them rewrite the story and talk about wealth in this remarkable way? And then I want you to share a little bit about Equati.
Yeah. So through my own lived business experience and then my corporate experience and my deep desire really to connect, first what began as the genders. So I do a lot of work and have really come to learn more about really the framework of the masculine and the feminine energy, because each one of us have both. So I prefer that language over speaking to the genders because we all have it. It's inherent in us. So this original framework of connecting the strengths of both in one business, and transitioned into connecting not only the generations but the genders, if you will, or the energies of both. So we do that in Equati with a couple of ways. It's bridging the emotional intelligence with technology, because family offices and family businesses, and there's a difference, but they can be very intermingled, They have a huge impact on startup and scale up businesses. And with the change in technology and with this great wealth transfer, and more than 60% is going to women, I am here to help them build trust in the older gen, whether it's the silent or the boomers, and how that transitions to the Gen X, Y, and Z. And how do we do this in a way that we use emotional intelligence and we build a bridge so that they can build trust with each other? So we pre-qualify deals, and through my own communities, both all female, co-ed, venture studio, just entrepreneur tech communities all around the world, we're bringing in businesses so that these families and women will be really at the threshold of this, can start to get involved and continue on those legacies, if you will, going from what has been known for so long and making that shift, but doing it in collaboration. So really this framework of how do we learn what was done and why it was done, excuse me, and then how do we take what the new gen sees is coming and start to build trust in that and starting to educate each other.
Why do you think there's a lack of trust?
Fear. So for the older gen, it is fear of being irrelevant, fear of not having a purpose, fear of the younger gen not hearing them, so not being heard, and honoring what they've built. And for the newer generation, it's very similar, not having a purpose, not being trusted, not being understood and respected. So like we talked about earlier, we mirror each other. It just shows up in different ways. And those were pretty big aha moments for me in doing all the research and a couple of years into this and developing the technology, is the fear being the underlying factor in all of it. Yeah.
I find that so fascinating that it's literally
Yeah.
the same fear is the same for both
Yeah.
generations. And when you think about building this trust, how is your technology supporting you in doing that?
Yeah. So we do it in a way where we bring in the future generation. So we have the current gen that's at the helm, if you will, their advisors. And then we bring in the future gen that's going to take over, and they become involved in the decision making, whether it's a little bit more passive or more integrated. But through that, we streamline things for them so they can focus on what really matters. And before we even onboard those businesses, we actually do due diligence on their behalf so that it's not, so it's less administrative for them and they can focus on those other discussions. And as I continue to bring on more of the businesses, and I've beta tested with some family offices and learned a lot through that experience, this gets to be a different experience for them that doesn't exist. That I take that back. There might be a couple of technologies that do a little bit of what we do, but there's none that focus on that generational bridge.
Yeah.
And building that trust. And not only that, building the trust with the businesses. So how do we allow that storyline to continue, and change that mindset of the family offices? Because even though they have the money and the assets to invest, their perception is that they always get the bottom of the barrel, or they're not seeing the good deals, or that they can't ever find the great entrepreneur. So, which brings me back to my experience in family business. You know, our household was a pretty insular unit. And that's the same thing. You don't go outside of your circle, you stay pretty insular in that. So, how do we bring the businesses to them and allow them to begin to build relationships, even if it might not be something they would invest in now? What could it look like in a year's time after they've made some traction or progress, or 2 years' time?
Yeah.
So, it's bringing communities together in a different way.
That is so wonderful because you're helping them find one another. You're giving voice to each generation. And you are also empowering every party.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the ripple effect of this is exactly what we started this conversation with, which is not knowing what that odd behavior was. And you're helping these companies move beyond any kind of potential odd behavior.
Yeah. Yeah.
Were you aware that you were going to end up doing this?
No, if you would have asked me even 6 years ago, would you ask for a divorce again and then sell everything you own and travel to a foreign country all on your own to start a business, a technology business that did this, and then you were going to move back to the US and then plant in your childhood home to only go to Texas to do this thing? No, 100% no.
Well, how does it feel now that you are?
Free. Yeah, there's a freedom to it. And it's a lot, which sounds weird because it's so hard. Like it's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of focus. It's micro shifts, decisions. And yet, even my family is like, oh my gosh, you are a new woman.
I love that.
Yeah,
Well, you're truly an influential voice.
thank you.
Are you ready for some fast talk?
I
What's your favorite book?
Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss.
I love that book. Who's your
Mhm.
favorite speaker and why?
Sarah Blakely. That woman just speaks honest truth, and her passion is so resonant, and the story she tells and the humor behind her is just phenomenal. And as one of the first women to reach a billion um, with her
Yeah.
company in like early 2000s, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. She's got a very healthy relationship to wealth, and
Yes,
she is abundant beyond, and we all know that she's wealthy, but she's abundant. Did you
she
see
is.
her most recent post about going into the jewelry store?
I did.
Yeah, if you don't follow Sarah, go ahead and follow her. We won't tell you what it is because it's you
It's
have to see it
fantastic.
for yourself. It is
Yeah,
fantastic.
she is.
Um, how do you memorize when you're speaking,
I
Stacy?
I don't. I really focus on embodying. I create like place. I've learned to create placeholders and to trust myself. So I don't memorize.
Okay. What do you do the day before you speak?
Dance, pleasure, joy, things that just allow me to ground. I have some other tools that I use, but it's really about trusting myself
Awesome. What podcast are you currently obsessed with?
too. I'll start with the business one first. Billion Dollar Backstory by Stacy Havner.
Mhm.
It's all about raising and small boutiques, and she's a great perspective. And then Lorraine Kren on masculine and feminine dynamics. And for me, I can play it out both in personal relationships, but in business relationships. And it helps me understand where I get to lead differently and what's coming from somebody else that isn't necessarily mine to take.
Amazing. We will put all of these in the show notes. Stacy, where can our
Beautiful.
listeners get in touch with you?
They can get in touch with me at either equity.ai or stacyidema.com.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being a
Yeah,
featured guest today.
it's a pleasure.
It's such a
Great to see
pleasure.
you.
You too. For those of you listening, thank you so much for giving us your precious time today. And remember, everybody, your voice matters.